Okay, we're live again on another episode of the Edlow Podcast. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Hello, Zach Gowan.
Hello, subscribe.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, if you haven't subscribed yet, I don't know what's going on in your life, but you need to change it. Um, so excited to have you here. This is gonna be awesome. Um,
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate the interest, and I'm always grateful that anybody from any sort of walk of life shows any sort of interest in me or my story, or think we can dive into it and get something out of it that maybe it'll help them or somebody who's listening. I think that's it reinforces to me anyway that I'm walking the right path. So grateful to be here, man.
that's interesting. Let's go on that. You say you're walking the right path. What do you do to decide, to recalibrate when you're wondering those things?
Well, really, it's all about for me. Um, it's about seeking.
Mm,
It's about seeking. I mean, I have to because I always say, I go, listen, the biggest opponent was never the Big Show or Brock Lesnar or Vince McMahon or anybody inside of a wrestling ring. The biggest opponent that I have in my life is the man in the mirror. And the
yeah.
question is, what am I doing today to overcome that
Mm,
person. And if I can overcome myself, whether it's my impulsivity or selfishness or um, lack of connection to a higher being, higher source of power, um, then if I can overcome all of that, then I'm walking the right path.
yeah.
And so how that looks up in everyday life, it looks up like in the form of gratitude lists. It looks like connecting with other like-minded individuals, asking myself, what's the next right thing to do?
Mm,
And doing that and taking action, asking myself, who can I help today without any sort of recognition or reward.
mm.
And it's all to me what life boils down to is, can you overcome yourself or not? And then those who are disciplined enough and those who are obedient and those who seek get to live a life that I get to live, which is indescribably wonderful,
Mm.
which has led me to this moment here with you and your listeners.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, and I was glad that you agreed to come on, was because, um, we talked off air. I'm an indie worker, and you can't tell by the video, but I'm 6'7", and at my good weight, I'm like 275. I'm a little higher than that. We won't say how long, how much higher now, but and so like, there's always even before I was fully trained, there was a spot for me on almost any show just because of my size. But there's not a huge market for, guys like you, meaning you're not particularly big, and also you're an amputee. So for people who aren't wrestling fans, they don't know that we're talking to, well, technically, I guess the second amputee to ever be in the WWE, but certainly, is it above the knee or below the knee?
It's yeah, above the knee.
Okay, other than Kerry Von Erich, you're the only amputee that I'm aware of that made it to the WWE,
Right.
and, so I just find that to be really fascinating, and knowing a little bit about you, you weren't born, that way. You had your leg removed when you were a child, right?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 8 years old. I had bone cancer on my left femur, right above my left kneecap, and, to prevent it from spreading, in order to save my life, the doctors acted quickly and swiftly, and, the doctors and surgeons and my mother came to the decision, "Hey, listen, we gotta take his leg, it's not what we wanna do. This is not ideal, uh, but in order to give Zach his best chance at seeing his ninth birthday, they recommended an amputation, and so I lost my entire left leg to the battle of cancer at 8, but I definitely feel like I won the war of life because it's been shoot, I'm 42 now, so what's 8 minus 42, 36 or something?
Yeah, I went to law school so that I don't have to do math, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I got in the ring with Brock Lesnar, so I didn't have to do math homework anymore, but it's certainly been a long time. I feel like I won the war of life, and, and I have an opportunity to, like you said, just just do some really incredible things. You know, Henry Ford once remarked that um, experience is of supreme value in life,
Mm,
and I think it's important for uh, at least I don't know if I was molded by trauma and cancer and all of that as a kid. I'm not really sure, but I've always had this kind of feeling in me of like I want to experience everything this life has to offer.
mm,
And fortunately, I live in a country that more than any other country supports that drive and that desire. And so I've been able to have these amazing experiences, like you said, to be the first one-legged WWE superstar. And there was no market for that. There
yeah,
we just kind of created it as we went along. And but on the flip side of it, you could always say, listen, I'm 6 feet tall and I weigh 100 and I don't know, 80 pounds. How many 6 feet, 180-pound pro wrestling superstars are there in the
mhm,
WWE? So
right,
you look at it where it's like, well, if I didn't have a leg, then I wouldn't have had those opportunities that I have now.
true.
And it's like, it's just it really depends on what side of the coin you want to play with, I guess. Um, but for me, it was just an incredible opportunity and almost tailor made for wrestling, which is um it wouldn't have worked if I didn't have, the athleticism and the discipline and the ability to connect with an audience, that I either was born with or I've developed along the way.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it would have been kind of, like, sad and depressing and kind of a sideshow, deal, but we were able to pull it off and, shoot, over 20 years later, there's still demand for me in the wrestling world, but most of my focus is on the public speaking and the motivational speaking tours that I do. And so I'm just man, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. You know?
yeah, well, and I wanted to ask you, going back to when your leg was amputated, a lot of people, I'm sure as a kid, it would be you to have your leg suddenly taken from you, that's a big blow. Did you immediately have that mindset of, "Well, I just wanna, go and get everything out of life," or is that something you developed over time?
Um, that's something that I had. I think that I was born with, really.
Mm,
From the ages of like 3 to 11, my mother famously tells people that um we didn't visit any restaurants, because I can't like, I just can't behave. I can't there was my nickname was Zach the Maniac,
uh-huh,
so there was a drive, there was some kind of, um, uh, just force kinda making me jump out of my skin and wanting to, experience everything and do everything,
mm,
and drive to be the best that I could possibly be in any given scenario. Obviously, when I was a kid, that was a little murky because I wanted to I tried like hell. I was desperate to compete with my able-bodied friends in sports. And, like, I was determined whether it was baseball or basketball or soccer, like, somehow I was gonna compete on the same level, as my able-bodied friends, and I was able to do that for the most part.
mm,
And I think that really laid the foundation for me in terms of like, well, shoot, if I try hard enough and I work hard enough at something, I can do anything that anybody else can do. And and now I still have the same drive, but it's like pointed in a little bit of a different direction, but it's still there.
yeah. So, as you're growing up, were you always a wrestling fan? How did you get into training to be a pro wrestler?
Yeah, I love pro wrestling, man. Pro wrestling saved my life multiple times.
Mm,
Multiple times, man. My love of pro wrestling saved my life multiple times. When I was a kid, it gave me something to, well, first it was banned in my house because I couldn't stop breaking furniture and jumping off stuff and
dude,
doing
that's the
Aquaman.
My mom took all of the beds and put them on the floor because
Yeah.
I kept power bombing my brother on all the beds. Yeah.
And no stuffed animals at all because those instantly become wrestling buddies when the real
Right.
wrestling buddies were taken away.
Right.
None, man. No, I was obsessed. I loved, my first angle that I that hooked me was when, Earthquake debuted in WWF,
Mm,
and there was Dino Bravo was feuding with the Ultimate Warrior, and there was a push-up contest
mm,
between Dino Bravo and the Ultimate Warrior, and they got this really, really big guy out of the audience to come in and sit on the back of Dino Bravo, and he did, 10 push-ups or whatever, and then he went to sit on the back of the Ultimate Warrior, and then he just jumped on him, and it was a swerve all along, and it was
right.
Earthquake. That's how he debuted, which I always thought was just the best debut ever, which ironically, I debuted as a fan from the audience 20 years later in WWE coming over the rail to help, Mr. America, who is, Hulk Hogan, and, so I always thought that was really cool, but from that moment, that I was like, "Oh, this is the best thing ever." Like,
Mhm,
I love the physicality, the violence, the characters, everything that makes wrestling great,
mhm.
um, and it's still just what these kids do nowadays is just incredible.
Yeah,
What they're able to pull off inside of that ring on a weekly basis is just it's mind-blowing, and it's like what I used to play with my action figures, what I used to envision what wrestling that's what it is now, you
mm,
know?
mhm.
Um, but obviously, as an older guy and as somebody who's been in the wrestling business since I was 18, I look at it a little bit different, and I look at, like, the past a little more fondly in terms of the presentation and the characters and the moments. Maybe it's a product of where I was, age-wise watching it, but I just feel like it man, we don't have those moments anymore, or if we do have those moments, they're immediately forgotten about,
Yeah.
you know?
Well,
I mean,
there's just so much content now too, like
it's on dude,
yeah, 'cause
John Cena just did his retirement tour, the greatest of all time, which I would argue is the greatest of all time, and we can get into why, and I'd be happy to 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 get in front of a judge and, we can go back and forth on that. But, he in one of his promos, he goes, "You know what? In 3 weeks, I'll be forgotten about." And everyone's like, "Oh, no, no, no." It's literally been 3 or 4 weeks and he's completely forgotten about like,
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
even
yeah, they're on to the
just
next
moving
thing.
on to whatever is
Yeah,
next. It's like, man, that's not the where are those moments that'll live forever, you know? Can we create those moments anymore? I thought, you remember when, what's his name? Edge speared Jeff Hardy off
yeah,
the
off the
ladder match.
line. Yeah, yeah,
That was a moment, right?
yeah,
Ingrained, man, and I thought we topped that when we had Logan Paul and Ricochet do their deal at the Royal Rumble where they both
yeah,
springboarded at the same time, and I'm watching that with my
yeah,
kids, and I'm like, That's the most impressive that's the greatest thing I've ever seen inside of a wrestling ring."
right.
And then it hasn't been mentioned once once since.
Right, right, I'll tell you, they still play that ladder match thing even now, like, they still
Yeah.
play it. I think that might be 3rd behind Hogan slamming Andre and Foley coming off the cage.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, those 3 moments are probably the most replayed moments of all time, and
1,000%.
yeah, and I remember so your career and here's what I think people don't realize is that it's not like WWE just picked up we need an amputee for this angle. Like you had been in Impact, you like at TNA, you had done some other things. Like you actually were working through the indie scene and they picked you up, right?
Yeah.
I mean that did you end up going to like a WWE tryout and they found you or did they just how did that work? How did you get picked up?
Um, First of all, it was never my intention to be a WWE superstar or wrestler or work for I did not that I didn't want to, I just never thought it was possible.
Mm,
Like, I limited the beliefs of my career when I started. My only goal was to I wanted to be a high school math teacher
mhm,
that moonlit as a professional wrestler.
mm,
That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to wrestle on the weekends. I wanted to wrestle Sabu one time. Like, that was, like,
Yeah.
when I was 18 years old, he told me, like, if you asked me, like, what would a successful wrestling career look like, I would tell you I wrestled Sabu one time at the
Mm.
local VFW.
Yep.
Like, that's all I wanted to do, man. Um, and so how I got to WWE was I sent a tape into back when we used to send in tapes, and
Mhm.
we'd have to promote ourselves, and it was a different time, but I sent in my, tape to TNA,
Mm.
'cause I wanted to wrestle for TNA because that's where all of the X Division guys were.
Mm.
So guys like AJ Styles and Low Key and Amazing Red and all those guys, Jerry Lynn, I'm like, "Oh, that's where that's the style I wanna wrestle. Those are the best in the world at what they do. I wanna be in the ring with those guys." So I sent my thing into TNA, and, and then I got a dark match with TNA, and this dark match was just it went viral before there was a viral,
Mm.
before there was an internet, really. It was, everybody in the wrestling industry all of a sudden knew about me from this dark match. So there was, like, a little bit of mystique because nobody knew what I looked like or who I was. They just knew there was a one-legged guy, and he had a killer match, and the crowd was going crazy.
Mm.
And, so that was, like, the rumors going around the this is a small business too, you know?
Mhm.
And, within a couple of weeks, WWE called me and offered me a contract
Wow.
just based off the buzz of that dark match I had, so they had no idea what I looked like. In fact, in the meantime, I went back to TNA and I was on their pay-per-view, on
Mhm.
their television, wrestling, while they were actively trying to figure out while WWE was trying to figure out how to sign me and
Mm.
what my name was and where I was and what my phone number was and all this kinda stuff. And then in the process of that, they ended up signing another one-legged guy named Steve Chamberlain, who they thought that he was me because how many one-legged pro wrestlers could there be?
Right.
When 3 minutes ago there were 0, so now
Right.
obviously there can't be more than 1, but for whatever reason, at this time, there was more than 1. They signed him. He shows up to TV, the Steve Chamberlain guy, and, and then they quickly realized that he's not me because I'm on the other company's, television program, and they're like,
Right.
"Oh, shoot, we made a mistake," you know? And then, once they figured all that out with him, they gave me a call and offered me a contract, which, uh, to this day was one of the most surreal calls I've ever gotten in my life.
Right. Did you when you got the call, were you like, "Who's ribbing me?" You're like, "Who is this?" Or
I believed it right away.
oh, really?
I just went into, like, this weird dream state of, like, I can't believe Johnny Ace. Because I know who Johnny Ace is, you know?
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, "I can't believe Jo" he's like,
Yeah,
"Hey, kid,
everybody knows who he is now.
we're gonna change you." Oh, shoot, yeah. He's pretty infamous at this point.
Yeah, right.
He was pretty well known within the industry, but now
Yeah, no.
he's broken contained for sure.
Yeah.
Uh You know, I gotta say, I was having speaking of Johnny Ace, I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine who used to work for WWE and every other company in the world, like, last week, and about, like, what a what a challenging job to be director or, to be I in charge of talent for a
Yeah.
company like WWE.
Mm.
Like, what a thankless, hard, headache-inducing, stressful. Because not only you have to deal with all these wrestlers, and wrestlers are the most insane group of people you'll ever meet in your
Right.
freaking life, right?
Right.
And then when you get to that level, and we're talking about real money, and we're talking about careers, and we're talking about families, and we're talking about ego, and it's all mixed up, and you gotta navigate through that, not only to deal with that, but to have your boss be Vince McMahon on top of
Right.
it, like,
Right.
that is the hardest I would you couldn't pay me enough money. There's no way I would last a day in that job. And I was just because everyone just beats up on Johnny A, so me and my buddy were like, "Dude, he was the perfect guy for that job."
Mm.
And considering the circumstances and the demands of that job, he did, you know, just strictly speaking from a business perspective, he was the best. He did that very good, you know? And,
Well, I can tell you from just being an indie promoter and working, I was actually talking, I had a podcast with Vince Russo a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this, and I was telling a story about how even on the low level indie side, where you're booking these guys who really, they're for what you'd call a 40 miler, right? Never leaves 40 miles from home. And you got a guy like that who's telling you he can't lose in a small city that there's 100 people, like, he can't lose. Just the egos in that. I was like, imagine that on WWE scale where these are the best of the best.
yeah,
That would be so much harder. And you mentioned Vince McMahon. So so you worked really closely. I mean, that's the thing that is was there a jealousy component to working with you worked with Vince McMahon, Brock Lesnar, like, you debuted saving Mr. America, who's Hulk Hogan. I mean, you worked with all the top guys c almost immediately.
yeah.
Um, was there some jealousy backstage?
Um, I don't think it was I don't think it was jealousy. I think if I because I definitely caused a lot of friction with a lot of the wrestlers, and I
Mm,
don't think it was because of my position within the company. I
mm,
think it was my position within the company mixed with my attitude and how I conducted myself and how I carried myself. I
oh,
think if I came in and I had a lot more emotional maturity,
mm,
um, that at 20 years old, that's a tough ask, because I had about 20 matches before I got to WWE.
right, right,
I was literally a rookie, and, I didn't have the life experience to understand the sacrifice and the business side of things in terms of how to conduct myself. I
mm,
didn't. I didn't have that experience, I didn't have those tools, and so me, I just desperately wanted to fit in and be like a WWE superstar and live that life.
mhm,
I wanted to make some money, and I wanted to meet some girls, and I wanted to be on TV, and I wanted to, like when I didn't really understand, like, that's more of the facade
mm,
of it. That's kinda what the wrestlers project, but the real the core of the business is built on sacrifice, and it's built on being a part of a team, and it's built on, going day in, day out, and giving your best effort, over years and years and years and years of this. And
mm,
I didn't have an appreciation for what it took to be a WWE superstar. So without that gratitude or that foundation of gratitude, I wasn't able to conduct myself. And so when I come in as this like snot-nosed kid at 20 years old, and all of a sudden I'm on top, working with these not only wrestling legends, but cultural icons like Roddy
mm,
Piper and Hogan and Vince
right,
and all these guys. And You know, I'm walking around like I'm the one who did it,
right,
and when not understanding, like, this is a gift that's being handed to you, and it should be held and appreciated and nurtured, and all of and I didn't have the capability of doing that, and so it wasn't like, you know, uh, other wrestlers were jealous of my position within the company. It was the way that I conducted myself and handled myself that caused the friction, and that's I mean, there's no one to blame besides me on that. There's
yeah.
nobody.
Was this a situation where, like, I've heard stories, even at my level, a situation where certain vets and certain people expect a certain amount of respect, but you got shot kind of, to the top pretty quick, and that respect necessarily wasn't there, or was it something else you're talking about?
Yeah, it just wasn't earned.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like, you talk about that on the level of that respect. I'm coming in as an outsider, and I'm working these main events, and, like, I'm acting as if I'm, like, the guy that's being portrayed on TV that, like, "Hey, I'm in the main event. I had the best
Right,
match of the night." You're
right,
like, "Kid, you're 20 years old." Like,
right.
that's cool, like, on TV, and you got a nice crowd reaction and all of that, but, like, there's steps to get there before we establish this trust and this relationship with the locker room, and I didn't understand that, and so when I felt some pushback from the locker room, in terms of my, getting heat with the guys and all that. Like when I experience some pushback, I just push back even harder, you know?
Mhm,
I'm like, "Well,
mhm.
screw you guys, dude. I'm the best. Like, there's a reason why I'm on top and you're not, you know?"
Right,
It's like,
right.
"No, bro.
Yeah,
I didn't put myself there. I was
yeah,
booked to be there."
yeah.
And there's a whole process that I didn't fully understand yet.
I remember, I don't know if you know Johnny Jeter, he
Yeah.
worked with the Spirit Squad, yeah, so he actually trained with him, he lives probably 15 minutes from me, so we're good friends, and I went and trained with him for a while and, finished up training when I took a long hiatus off, and he was telling me when he was in the Spirit Squad, he kinda felt the same way where these guys kinda got called up and they come in there and they're working with DX and Ric Flair and, like, all these guys, and some of the other guys were kinda same deal, but it sounded like the issues were different and that he was trying to handle himself in a respectful way, but people weren't they were kinda jealous of him because he was getting those main event spots and felt like they didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Whereas you were also kinda probably feeding that with a with kind of a cocky mindset while you were going through it.
100%. Yeah, I was all the way arrogant and cocky and way I was in over my head. I was in shark-infested waters
Yeah.
acting
That
like
that
I
was a yeah, that was a cutthroat time too.
yeah,
Yeah.
insanely cutthroat because you gotta understand it was a listen, man, I just did, AEW a couple months ago,
Mm,
and I haven't wrestled for a company that big since 2003 when I was in WWE.
mhm,
So I go to AEW and, I realized I almost had, like, PTSD, like,
mm,
symptoms from, like, being in a big arena. Like, I
uh-huh.
I walk in and, I'm looking at the locker room in AEW, and, I sit on a chair. Hold on, can we pause it real quick? I gotta yell at my kids.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead and go
That's
yell at
fine.
him. I'll pause it right now.
Yeah, alright, give me 1 second.
It's great to know that I'm not the only one who has to occasionally pause a podcast to yell at his kids.
No.
So you've got 4, right?
Yeah, I have 4. I've been doing this since, 2020, man, when all of my work went virtual,
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And, like, I'm doing, like, these keynotes and these presentations and these workshops at these conferences, and I got, like, kids yelling and screaming in the background, and I'm like, "I'm about to go viral for, like, doing a Homer Simpson to Bart Simpson,"
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
How old are your kids?
I have a 13, 9, 5, and 3.
Oh, wow, okay, so you're still in the thick of it. I have 4, they're 19, 17, 14, and 12,
Nice.
and I hate to tell you, it gets harder. They get crazier, like, it's funny, it's different, like, I would tell you as a dad, this is my favorite time of being a dad, like, when they're developed like, when they're young, you're just trying to keep them from not killing themselves, right? I mean, but when they get to be teenagers, the hard part becomes more emotional, but rather than physical. But it's cool to watch them develop into like real life humans and like have opinions and those opinions you don't know where they come from, or I learned recently just talking with my kids, like they all have these different passions. Like the passion that you and I have for wrestling, my son has for choir. And I'm like, where did that come from? Or my daughter's a theater buff. And I'm like, how did that, where did that come from? And so it's just fun to watch them develop as they get older and come up with different things. And just there's something about personalities, like you mentioned, you just think you were born with it. There's something about a personality that you come with,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
so,
There's a huge nature versus nurture kind of argument to be had, but, um, my 13 my oldest son, Nolan, he's been Nolan since the day he came out, you know?
yes. Yeah.
He slept in his bed, he never cried, he was just this sweet boy growing up, and now he's, like, turning into, like, this, like, super sane and foundationally sound young man.
Yeah.
And
Well,
he's the
yeah.
best big brother you could ever ask for
Yeah.
versus my 5-year-old Diego, who reminds me of me and reminds my mom of me.
Right. Yeah.
The day he was born, he was Diego, you know? And it's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, man, like, you." I don't think as parents we can kinda, mold them into what we want them to be. I think I think we can try to direct them towards
Yeah,
a positive direction,
yeah,
but they are who they are, and they have
yeah.
business they want.
Well, the first one is good, so it's God's way of convincing you to have more, and then and then you
No,
have more,
yeah,
and then
my whole life
everything.
is God tricking me into doing other stuff based
Yeah,
off of false evidence of
yeah.
of the first example, you know?
Yeah, yeah, but no, it's fun, you're totally right in that I remember I used to like my son, I'll tell you the story real quick. My son, he played basketball all the way through, and he's tall like me and does pretty good. I spent a bunch of money getting him private lessons and all that, and he gets to freshman year, he goes to a smaller school, so he's gonna play varsity basketball freshman year. And I'm like, "Oh, wow, great," And then he just all of a sudden tells me he doesn't wanna play. And I'm like, "You've gotta be joking. This is what we've been talking about because I played basketball, right? And I'm just like, "You've gotta be joking. I've invested so much time and effort in coaching you and doing these things, and you don't wanna play." And he goes, "I actually wanna go and join the choir." And I remember going, "You are telling me that you are gonna give up playing varsity basketball for 4 years to become a choir boy?" And I was like, "That is" like, I was like, "That is insanity to me. I don't understand what you're doing. What
Yeah.
is Are you okay? What's going on?" And he ended up senior year going and playing basketball and starting on the varsity and doing fine, but the first time I saw him sing in choir, I was like, "Oh, okay. This is this is his passion." Right? And now he went on and did all sorts of awesome things. He was in honor choirs all over the world and did all this great stuff. But it was one of those things I go, "Oh, that's right. It's not my passion, it's his passion," right? And it's like, I've now developed with my kids, with all of them, I go, "I don't care what you're passionate about, you just have to be 100% in, like, you have to push real hard," and they all have their things, and it's just fun to watch them develop and then just kinda help them. So now, like, my daughter, she's a theater buff, so it's like I buy tickets to all the theater performances that come through Sacramento, and we go to that, and I'm like, "I don't know what this is, but whatever, you like it, so we'll hang out and we'll do it,"
That's
and
awesome.
so
That's
it's just
incredible.
yeah, and so it'll be exciting. You just wait, dude. 13 is where it turns. Like,
Yeah.
right when they start getting into high school and stuff is where they start turning into, they push on you a little bit, but, like, if you're a little bit of a rebellious spirit, you're okay with that. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
and most wrestlers are.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You
so
have to be.
yeah, so tell me now, so you're 20 years old, you go in and you're doing the WWE stuff, and, uh and you're there. I mean, that had to be overwhelming for you I mean, my son's 19. I couldn't imagine him being in a spot where you were, where you're main eventing pay-per-views
Yeah.
with Brock Lesnar and Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan. So, do you think it might have been a little bit too much too early or what?
Yeah, it was, very, very much.
Yeah,
Um, in a perfect world, I'd have a little bit of seasoning,
yeah,
a little bit of life experience, a little bit of, in a perfect world, but the world isn't perfect.
mm,
And, uh, so I'll always be grateful for the opportunity to experience the things that I experienced.
mm,
Um, but it was a thought I couldn't enjoy it while it was happening. It
sure,
was like it was, um, it was, all that pressure, outside pressure, pressure you put on yourself, pressure of being the first to ever do something. And this is when the internet before social media was really just, like, taking off. So
mm,
now I'm, like, on all these websites reading feedback about my match,
mm,
and then I'm reading, like, all this hate, like, "Oh, I hate Zach Gowan, he sucks. Why is he there? He's taking up somebody else's spot, da 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 da."
wow,
And, like, how can that not affect you
uh,
reading that at the same
totally,
time? And
totally,
it's like a lot and then it's like I know that I have friction with, like, my heroes. I
mm,
desperately wanna fit in with this locker room and be, like, part of the team, but for some reason, the more I try, the worse I make it,
mm,
and it's like I can't develop these real relationships that I wanna develop, and then so as a 20-year-old, it was not fun.
yeah, yeah,
Like, it wasn't fun at all. It was, amazing and I wouldn't change a thing, and I'm glad it happened, and I love, the WWE, and I'm so just, you know, the impact that company has had on me even outside of me working for that company is immeasurable.
Yeah.
We can dive into it depending on how long we have, but, um, I have nothing but love and respect for that com for the WWE, and I'm so grateful, but in that time capsule, in that moment, it was really challenging.
Yeah. Well, tell me now what that you mentioned the impact that it's had on your life since. Like, what do you mean by that? Just the fact that people still remember and you're still in the business or what?
Dude, all of that, man. So, being able to transition my career from wrestler to motivational speaker,
Mhm,
and, I'm one of the best in the country
mhm,
at what I do, and being able to establish a real connection with my audience. Usually, it's middle school and high school students,
mhm,
um, but I also work with middle school and high school, educators as well.
mhm.
I do a lot of professional and personal development with them, and it's just like it they're crazier than the students, which is a lot of fun, which is not something
Yeah.
I expected, but
Right.
it's fun to tap into it and to help and guide, but foundationally, all of that came from wrestling. So
Mhm,
my ability to be in front of an audience, the ability to tell a story, the ability to, um, make a connection and to make an impact, I learned from WWE. I
mhm,
learned from professional wrestling. Now, you take the stuff that I did in WWE, like wrestle the Big Show and wrestle Brock Lesnar and the stories that I have, all of that I build around them and I share those moments with my audience in
mhm,
order to not just entertain, but to make a connection with them to allow me to swoop in and make an impactful statement or do an impactful exercise that they'll be able to take with them. You know, it's
mhm,
just like that my time in WWE set up my time as a motivational speaker so perfectly well that I
mhm.
couldn't have even scripted I can't even script it. In fact, like, I called, the same buddy that I was just talking about, we were talking about Johnny Ace, he was with The Big Show maybe a year or 2 ago, and we were just texting back and forth, and he mentioned that The Big Show was next to him, and I go, "Oh my god." I go, "Will you please tell him thank you and that I love him, and thank you so much for giving me that moment back in 2003 because I've literally made a living off that moment since."
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's one of, like, the high points of my, keynote presentation that I work with students,
Yeah.
me doing a backflip onto the Big Show, and it's like I build this whole story around it, and I just tell him I love him and thank you, and I'm so grateful for him, you know? And, he was able to convey that message to the Big Show, which I was happy about, um, that but understanding that, okay, so I built my speaking career off my wrestling career,
Mhm,
understood, but to go even deeper, I wouldn't even have a speaking career, any career at all, if I wasn't, sober.
mhm,
I'm in long-term recovery from drug and alcohol, addiction,
mhm,
thanks to me back in 2010 reaching out to WWE and asking for help,
mhm,
then which they in turn paid for my treatment, then paid for my aftercare, for 6 months after that. So, like, 7 months in shoot, probably added up 60,000 dollars later,
mhm.
here's a sober Zach that now has an opportunity to do some really good things in the world.
Wow.
And I wouldn't have that opportunity if it wasn't for WWE running that program. I wouldn't have been in that program or eligible for that program if I didn't work for them all those years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so everything so my deep roots and connection to WWE, um, I wouldn't be here today without them, without
Wow.
question.
So that's interesting. I wanna talk about that for a second 'cause, my dad, I've never, touched a drug to speak of in my life, but my dad, for my entire childhood, I'm a LDS, I'm Mormon, right? It's interesting. You're from Michigan. I actually served a mission in Indiana, so, like, when I read about you working, like, IWA Mid-South and stuff like that, I know you probably did a lot of work up and down in Indy and even down south a little bit.
Yeah.
I was in Columbus, Indiana for a while, and there was always I think it was HWA or something was always running through there, and I was like, "Oh, man, this is cool," and I could never go as a missionary, but I always wanted to. But anyway, um, but my dad, my entire childhood was, in and out of not in and out, but, like, he was a drug addict and he would relapse and do these things.
Yeah.
Um, and so, um, anyhow, and then he finally got sober when he was about our age, I mean, in his 40s, and he's been sober ever since. He's a completely different person, so always fascinated to hear these stories. What your story then, did the drug use kinda start become or the alcohol, I don't know what it was, but your drug of choice, did it kinda start with, traveling and partying at the WWE, or did it start before or after?
Nah, it started before, really.
Okay.
It
Uh-huh.
didn't really, become problematic
Mhm,
until, when I say problematic, I mean, I had consequences, but I
mhm,
was really able to look over those consequences, as a teenager and as somebody in their early 20s, but it didn't become problematic until I was about 21.
mm,
Then so when I got fired from WWE, that was extremely painful, and so what helped me overcome that was diving deeper into partying because partying gave me the made me feel good, man, and I'm somebody who really values feeling good
mhm,
over a lot, and that's another thing that I have to overcome too, um, on a daily basis, but because my status was gone, right? I was
mhm,
publicly fired from my dream job,
mm,
um, the money dried up, the girlfriends left, so everything that I held that was valuable to me was gone, and the only thing I had left were the drinking and the drugs, and so those just took up a lot more space in my life, and my descent into addiction happened really, really fast to
mm,
the point where I was, um, shoot, man, 24, 25 years old, living in the worst neighborhood in Detroit, the most dangerous neighborhood in Detroit,
mhm,
delivering pizzas to feed my habit.
mhm,
I couldn't get steady work as a wrestler and I wasn't in any shape to do that. To getting robbed at gunpoint, getting carjacked, getting, having guns held to my head, all sorts of just like insanity. And um it took getting to the point where I just completely surrendered,
mhm,
and maybe you can relate to this, where I just said, it doesn't matter what I do. I can try to quit, I try to manage, I try to control, I exhausted all of my ideas
mhm,
on what it would take for me to be happy and successful and sober. I exhausted all of them, and I just threw my hands up and I said, I don't know what to do, and I'm scared, and I need help." And just saying those words out loud to a trusted individual was the first domino in in this, uh, uh, this beautiful sequence of events that led me to treatment, which led me to, living in a homeless shelter for 6 months after, which proved to be the most important decision I could have made at that time to, led my me meeting my wife and then the kids and then the new career and then the rebuilding of the wrestling career and all these new wonderful relationships and the life that I get to live now, man. And, it all started with me just surrendering.
yeah,
That's it.
so
It just
yeah,
a simple, "I can't. I don't know what to do, and I'm scared, and I need help," to whatever is out there, you
wow,
know? And
yeah,
then to me, that was really my first conscious contact with any sort of God, higher power, where I was just like, "Oh, that oh, oh." That's what everybody's been talking about my whole life when they
Right.
say, "Hey, I read the Bible, or I go to church, or I depend on God, or I experience that consciously for the first time," and I go, "Oh,
Right.
that's what God is, okay." And then that takes me here, man, almost 16 years later.
Yeah. So it's so fascinating too, because I'm sure, when you hit, what people call rock bottom, you probably are in a place where you think there's no hope left. Like there's no path forward. And then you change what you're doing. And now it sounds like, as far as meaningful things in your life, would you agree that you have a more meaningful life now than you ever had before?
1,000%.
Yeah. See, those are the stories that I think inspire people. This is why you're a great, I'm sure you're a great motivational speaker, is because, everyone's been in that spot in some way or another, whether it's addiction or something else, divorce or,
Sure.
job loss or, amputation, medical issues, whatever. It's amazing. What I think is so amazing about you is that all these things are in your life and you keep bouncing back and things keep getting better.
Yeah. So, the story of going from hopeless um, to having faith, like, that story is universal.
Mhm,
That's what my story is. That's what
mhm,
literally everybody's story is.
mhm,
I
mhm.
I happen to dress mine up with a little bit of, cancer here and pro wrestling and the big show and pills and being robbed at gunpoint and recovery and surrender, and now the principles that I live by that allowed me to build this tower of success that I call my life now.
Yeah,
But it's the same universal story. That story has been it's told 100 times in the Bible. It's told by everybody who's ever done anything meaningful. That
yeah,
path of going from a place of hopelessness to now having full faith in what they're doing is that they're on the right path.
yeah,
And now I have a deep responsibility, I believe, to share that message with as many people as I possibly can.
yeah,
Because the more that what would be the point of experiencing all of that? What, so I can sit around in a nice big house and drive an electric car and have a beautiful wife and 4 healthy kids and just pat myself on the back?
yeah.
Like,
Right.
no. The point is to give all that away so that somebody else who's walking that path or is in that position that I was in can have a little bit of hope that maybe if they do the next right thing, or if they just do that one thing tomorrow and they start, that they might have that domino effect the same way it had in my life. So to me, the more I give it away, the more I get to keep it. And that's been a spiritual axiom for the past, 16 years or so.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about that. You mentioned, taking that first step. I'm of the opinion that when you're in that place, it's the first step is the hardest, but once you do, the momentum moves fast. Is that what you noticed?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
that change was evident pretty fast, but then it's easy to get off track,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we can take that first step and we can be motivated and we can be inspired like we've never been motivated and inspired before, but check on me a week later and that emotion has gone away. So if I don't have the underlying discipline to keep taking the next step and the next step and the next step to build on that, because someone like me, I love instant gratification. That's
Mhm.
why I love those pills so much, because I knew I could pop, 80 milligrams of this or 4 of these or 6 of these, and then in 23 minutes, I can be on a whole different planet, and I
Mhm.
could feel perfect, and I could feel good, and I can do whatever I needed to do, you know?
Mhm.
Those
Mhm.
are magic little pills, man, but the problem is that's not how life works.
Yeah.
I wanna go to the gym, do 1 workout, and come out with a six-pack. That's what
Right.
I and then when I go to the gym for even for a week, and I weigh myself and I've gained like 2 pounds. I'm like, "What's the point of that?" I get
Right.
discouraged, and I get down, and I beat up on
Right.
myself and all this, and I'm never doing that again, you know? So it's good to have the spirit of the motivation, but it's more important to pair that with the discipline of doing the next right thing or taking the next right step to get that so you can get to a point where you can look back and be like, "Man, I'm so happy I was in that situation 15 years ago, and I realize now that if this didn't happen, that didn't happen, this didn't happen, then I wouldn't have the quality of life that I do now." It's much more gratifying, and it's rooted in something way more real than, an emotion that we can have.
Definitely. So if someone's listening to this and they're in that spot and they're struggling and they're not seeing any hope and they're not sure which way to go, and they're trying to figure it out and find their way, what would be Zach Gowan's message to that person?
I would say there is hope even if you can't see it, because if you're alive, I think you're alive for a reason.
Mm,
You're still here.
yeah.
You're still here. And with you being here, that means there must be a reason for that. The best thing that I've ever done was, uh, reach out to a um, reach out to a trusted individual with the message, "I'm scared, I don't know what to do, and I need help."
Mm,
Then surrender yourself to the process of whatever comes next.
mm,
Be careful what you wish for, because you might just get a life that you didn't even know was possible, or the life that you didn't even imagine. And a life that keeps getting infinitely better and better and better.
mm,
And that is the reality for a lot of people, um, myself included, and a lot of my friends, who walk a similar spiritual path as I do.
mm. That's awesome. When you mentioned spiritual path, so are you affiliated with church or is it more like a higher power kind of 12-step program style,
So
kind of non-denominational
I'm
God?
heavily involved in a 12-step program, which introduced me to God,
Okay.
as I understand God. And to me, it's like life saving and just exactly what I needed and what I still need to this
Mm,
day. Um, but it's also spiritual kindergarten. That's kinda how
mm,
I see it, which is
mm,
like, for someone like me who didn't have a foundation of religion or spirituality growing up, it it has been the perfect life-changing thing. It introduced me to a God, a living, working, breathing God in my life, you know?
mm,
And it's like, "This okay, okay. I can do this one day at a time, man. I can keep seeking. I can keep seeking. What does that look like?" Now, this my spirituality and my desire to know, God better has taken me to the Bible. And
mm,
so and I keep going back to, the gospel.
mm.
Um, um, what is it? Is it Mark, Luke, John?
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, yeah.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and J yeah, man, and so now I'm like, this has opened up this pathway to Jesus Christ,
Mm,
and it's like, whoa.
mhm,
Reading the Gospels with the virgin eyes for the first time
mm,
was one of the most mind-blowing experiences in my life, you know, where I'm like, the way because to me, the Bible has been so unapproachable because of I'd always start in the beginning with Genesis.
mm.
And I'd get like 7, 8 pages in, I'm like, "I don't know what's going on anymore."
Yeah, yeah, the
Like, what
The
is
Old Testament's rough, man.
happening?
Yeah, yeah, it's rough, and it's got a lot of crazy stories.
So,
Yeah.
so I was talking to my friend who's, my friend Reverend Joshua, and he goes, "Listen," he goes, "Pick it up again, but start with the Gospels this time." And I go, "Okay, I can do that," this is years ago. So I'm reading it, I'm just like, my mind's blown. I'm loving and then how society is described in the Gospels.
Mm,
This could have been written today
yeah,
with the way that's and I'm like, "Oh, so the battles that we get all caught up." I go, "These battles have been happening forever.
yep,
This is just spiritual warfare being played out in 2025 or the year that I was, current times, I should say.
sure.
And this is nothing new. This is just kinda good versus evil." And so when that framework kinda got shifted in me, that helped me a lot. And so anyway, long story short, I'm pursuing a relationship with Jesus Christ,
Mm,
and I'm seeking. And so when people ask me what religion or what I'm in, it's always the Gospels, and, I'm a seeker, so I'm seeking.
Mm,
I'm trying to grow in my understanding, and I'm trying to grow in that relationship with God, and I'm doing that through, um recently through the teachings of Jesus Christ.
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, man, what a journey.
Yeah.
That's I mean, to
Is
think
that
about.
okay or what?
Yeah, I mean, that's a crazy journey to be on, like, to go from 8 years old, losing your leg, to the WWE, peaking, kinda peaking there, getting your dreams, and then kinda go on a downward spiral, and then come up, hitting a place that you probably never really even imagined was possible, and living a meaningful life. That's really remarkable.
It's unreal, man. It's
Yeah,
it's absolutely unreal. Um, and, this is why I appreciate doing, interviews like this because I can allows me to reflect on it too.
yeah,
And, because we can all be prisoners of the moment of, well,
yeah.
especially as parents. You know what
Yeah,
I
dude.
mean?
Oh, man. When you're a parent and you're dealing, like, being a parent is crazy. I was just saying to another, one of my son's friends on a podcast I actually did with him, I was like, being a dad is so crazy because when you think about it, you're dealing with like 1,000 potentially life altering decisions in real time. Like, sometimes you have 2 seconds to react to a situation that could have significant impact, and if you answer wrong, they're gonna be telling the therapist 20 years later how you messed them up because you did this thing wrong, and so I told my oldest son, I told him, I go, "Listen, man, I'm not gonna pretend like I did it all right. I did my best with what I had. I could have read all the books in the world and still messed some of this stuff up. So all I can tell you is when you're a dad, there's stuff you like that I did, I want you to emulate it. There's stuff that I didn't do right, do something different. That's all you can do, right?" But it's wild, sitting there and being in those moments and going, I don't know how many times I've sat there and I've told myself, "Don't don't let your face show what you're thinking right now." It's just there, just go like, "Okay, okay, relax, it'll be okay. What do
Yeah,
you do next?" You know? And
that's
so
it. What's next? Alright, what's the next right thing? One of my favorite parts of being a dad is, doing something wrong and then, um, half hour later, taking that kid and saying, "Hey, what dad did was wrong, and I'm sorry. Like, I shouldn't have I didn't react normally, or I didn't react right in this situation. What
yeah,
I should have done instead is this. I'm sorry I made the mistake. Here's how I can help fix that, and then here's what I'm gonna do moving forward." To let them know that I'm a human too,
yeah,
also to let them know that it's okay to look back and say, "Hey, I made a mistake, but the good news is I'm here to try to do better,"
yeah,
and instill that little bit of humility, with the action of being a complete human being.
yeah, and that's yeah, I mean, accountability when you're a father is super important, and showing them how to do that
Yeah.
because it's not natural for those kids, they're little. I have a therapist friend who says, kids are little narcissists, so it's gotta he's like, they grow out of it, most of them, but,
Yeah.
their whole world is them, and you gotta
No, they
teach 'em.
remind me of me, man, and so
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
holding up a mirror, and
yeah,
it's fun too because I never had a dad growing up, so I was never taught any of this stuff, and
right.
so I'm learning on the fly, and I'm leaning on other men who are good dads in my circle, and I'm going to them, and I'm like, "Hey, what is this normal? Like, what do you do in this situation?" And so I'm learning how to be a dad as I'm being a dad in real
You know
time.
Well, I'll tell you, what's interesting about that too is my dad didn't have a father figure to speak of either, and I know, with all the stuff that, we've been talking about with the stuff that happened in my childhood, I held a lot of resentment for a lot of time
Mhm.
until I got to be the age when he made and then I realized, I go, "Oh, yeah." I mean, I had a dad that was growing up, as imperfect as he was, and I struggle with some of these decisions that I've made and how to navigate this incredible pressure of being a father and a provider and all of these things. I couldn't imagine how he could have done it, and I go, not that I'm okay with the decisions he made, but it makes a little more sense when he's
Yeah.
navigating the world by himself.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have nothing. My dad, sadly, I haven't seen him since I was 19. So he left when I was 4, and then when I was 19, 20 years old, he, showed up at a public autograph signing, I guess to try to get back into my life when I was in WWE, which is a kind of a whole wild it's a wild deal, man.
Yeah.
Uh, my dad's a wild guy, dude, and, but he tragically, he passed a couple of years ago.
Mm,
Um, he died in an alcoholic death, and, I always had this fantasy of, like, or this thought of, like, reconnecting with him as 2 sober men,
mm,
and rebuilding that or just building it, not even a rebuild, just a fresh build, and
mm,
unfortunately, we never got to do that, which is sad. Um, but I have you talk about having resentments towards your father growing I have that in spades, and now it's evolved to so much forgiveness and love for him because I couldn't imagine how painful the past 40 years of his life has been, and
mhm.
then now there is no more life as he
Yeah,
knows it, and I wouldn't wish that upon anybody in the world because I know what alcoholism feels like, and
yeah.
it's the worst thing in the world, and, so what were we saying? Um,
Talking about resentment with your dad and those types of
yeah,
things.
yeah, I mean, that's I don't know. I don't know where I was going. Maybe that was the whole thing. But
Yeah,
the whole idea of, um, understanding that he took off when I was 4, right?
yeah,
And, I completely understand and I get it.
yeah.
Like, I totally get it.
Tough.
Like, I understand completely why you left, brother. Like,
Yeah,
because this is tough. This is the hardest thing I've ever done, being like you
yeah.
said, being a good husband and being a provider and being a good dad and all of that. Like, this
I
is
don't I don't think these kids realize, and I don't think they will till they have kids, how much we really worry about them,
yeah.
and how much we think about them, and, I wanted to ask you as we wrap up, I appreciate your time here. I wanted to ask you, on this. Let's say that you could have a couple minutes with your dad right now, what would you say to him?
Oh, man, I would tell him I just love him and I forgive him, and, I'm sorry that he was in so much pain for so long.
Mm,
And I hope that he could forgive himself, and I hope that he could find, strength and direction and guidance in in the arms of God, you know? Like, I really could because and thank him for giving me life because without him, I wouldn't be here. I
yeah,
wouldn't be able to do all this and just let him know that, and I'd want him to meet, um 'cause I can't imagine how much pain it is to not only be in alcoholism, but also you're gonna miss your son too, you
mm,
know? Like, that's gotta
mm,
hurt, that's gotta suck, um, and so I would show him, my kids, and I think he would love my kids, man.
yeah,
Everyone loves my kids. They're
yeah,
great kids, you know?
yeah,
And then, that one in particular, Diego, I think it would remind him a lot of me when I was that age too, so I think he'd get a kick out of that, but I would just shower him with just love and forgiveness.
man,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I gotta tell you, man, it's been a pleasure. I told you earlier, I was like, I always love where these go because I go places I never thought they would, and it's just awesome to hear your story, and it's inspiring to hear, where you come from. It's so cool to see, like, I remember in the time you were in there in 2003 and 2004, I was watching as you were going through things, and to see where you are now, I would say, so happy you are where you are now. You know what I mean? Like, to see that, that's just such an awesome thing. If people wanna follow you, where do they find you?
Just at Zach Gowan, um, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter,
Alright.
that's about it. And
Okay,
ZachGowan.com, all that.
ZachGowan.com? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, for people who are listening, this has been Zach Gowan on the Edlow Podcast. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already. We still got more stuff coming up. We're working on all sorts of things. Still trying to get that director from Pastor to come on. For some reason, he keeps snubbing me. He keeps fabing me, man. It pisses me
Oh,
off.
no.
Yeah, it's a
Let me
it,
know what I can do. If I can reach out, if I can help, let me know.
yeah, I will. All right, man. Hey, thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you later.